And we're on. This is 3 yards per carry. We're going to preview the Carolina Panthers and the Miami Dolphins. I have Simon Clancy here with me. I have Chris Kaufman here with me. And as always, we are brought to you by 305 800 Pain. Just like the Dolphins kicked off the season, you need to be ready too. After an accident, your first move should be to call 305 800 Pain. Better Business Bureau accredited with an A+ rating. Your car accident, personal injury specialist, fast connections with trusted doctors and attorneys, always ready to take your call 24/7. Again, it's 305 800 Pain, 305 800 Pain. And again, I said it on Tuesday, and I'll say it again. We will welcome Factor Meals back to the podcast on Monday, Thompson Cigar back to the podcast on Monday, Underdog back to the podcast on Monday, and 305 800 Pain back to the podcast on Monday. So essentially on Monday, all you're going to do is hear me for 30 minutes reading ads. And at the end of it, we'll just repeat the score from the game on Sunday. All right, guys, let's start here. It's different. Usually I have Simon below me and CK above. Now it's the other way around. And I don't know how to change it. So I guess, Chris, you're going to go first on this.
Oh boy. I wasn't looking when you did the advert. I could have gone to the side and peeked at the thing.
How did you not know this?
Because I
give me shit for it all the time.
I was reading something. The first time
you know why
attention.
You know why it is. You know why that happened, Alf?
What?
It's because I was the last one of the party this time.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think I can change it or no?
No, because I'd have to log out and then log back in again.
Yeah. No, we'd both have to come back out and then I'd come in first.
Let me see if this works. All right. All
right. Wow. Oh, you're really hung up on this. Oh, wait a minute. Did you just kick Simon out?
Watch. Bang!
Oh, look at that. We just kick him out.
That is.
We can do that like literally any time.
Yeah, look, I'm learning how to use this thing as we speak. This
surely you wouldn't do that. Surely you wouldn't do that to me if I just started droning on.
Yeah, let me see. Bang! You see?
This is great fun for the people listening on the podcast.
Yeah, and now I got Simon. And now I got Simon next to me. So yeah, Simon's gonna go first.
Poor audio only people right now.
Yeah, Simon's gonna go first on this. What in the hell are defensive coaches doing? Essentially, very passive aggressively, all of them. It seems like it's a concerted effort. Maybe they had a convention or something. They met together for dinner and they said, "Look, we're going to coordinate our efforts from now on, and we're going to be really passive aggressive in all of these availabilities and talk about, oh, this guy just got here like 3 weeks ago, and the other guy just got here a month ago," and essentially just throw shade on Chris Grier to no end. What do you make of this? I think it's completely off-putting. Maybe you have a different thought on this than I do, Simon.
I don't know what you're referring to.
Then Chris is going to fill you in. Hit it.
I have no idea what this is about.
Today, literally, the corners coach, Matthew Araujo, he mentioned something about, how, well, if you think about it, all three of our corners, they're starting corners right now. None of them were here at the start of training camp, wow. And so I think it's sort of a, I don't think they mean it. I don't think they mean it in a malicious way.
But why are all of them saying the same thing?
Well, I mean, Anthony Weaver went into it a little bit, right? But he was very aggressively asked, like, did you at any point step up and say, I don't have enough? I don't have enough. Like, did you go really, advocate for the talent on the defense? And I think, he was asked a couple of different ways the same type of question, and he made a comment. He's like, listen, I don't buy the groceries, I just cook. That's something along those lines, right? And Araujo just said something more or less the same thing as Weaver. I think Weaver even mentioned the same thing about the corners too. Actually, kind of Weaver went through the entire list of the defense, and he's just like, look how much has changed. Like, the people say just build on next year. He's like, every year is different. He's like, look at it. And like the corners that we have, they weren't even here in training camp, the starting corners. The safeties are all new. We have Two new defensive tackles. We have Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb didn't even play last year. Like, Jalen Phillips played like 4 games or 3 games or something like that. He's like, this is an all new defense. And I think that was a salient point. Actually, I did a study on that, and it showed that the Dolphins have probably the second most turnover on defense of any defense in the league from a snap standpoint. Just in terms of pure snap, being identical from one year to the next. That percentage of turnover is second highest behind only the Patriots. And there is a very strong relationship that you can show between that turnover and how good your defense is. It's really, I mean, it's as simple as that, especially in the first 4 games of the year. Anthony Weaver had a point there, and Araujo, I think, is saying the same thing. And it kind of just reminds me of how people started pointing fingers on the offense, before a couple weeks ago. When you had Tua talking about the operations and stuff like that. You had even Mike McDaniel talking about his underling coaches and their operations. You had, Frank Smith coming back and saying, we could have called more runs. We found as a staff that we could have called more runs, but, we got away from it. Well, who's we as a staff? Who's the play caller? So, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of finger pointing going on, and it's the classic thing that happens when you're a 1-3 team, or an 0-3, now 1-3. Hopefully things are turning around. But also 1-3 is not so. 1-3, having just lost your superstar wide receiver, is still not looking good, and so there's still that finger pointing.
Especially when the defense just has not been good, and it's leaky, right?
You can say it's terrible.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they fix one thing and something else breaks, and then okay, let's fix that, and then this is going to break. So, what I found a little bit off-putting, and Simon, you could speak to this, is that the guys that are playing well as of late are the guys that just got here, the 2 cornerbacks, and the guys that are playing bad are the ones that have been here for 2 years or been here since April. And today's Simon, I don't know if I'm certain you haven't watched the availabilities today from all the coaches. Frank Smith was peacocking all over the place on the podium. Like, he was like, yeah, I told to Tua that Darren Waller's catch radius is vicinity. Just throw it near him, and he's going to catch it.
Oh,
but
yeah.
But when they were talking, when all the coaches were talking, and Anthony Weaver was talking, Anthony Weaver said, "Look, relax on KG." Evidently, Kenneth Grant is now named after a Hall of Fame power forward from the Boston Celtics. But he said, "Relax on KG. He's going to be a fabulous player in this league. It's just, it's going to take time with him." And it was essentially an excuse tour. But what do you make of it, Simon? Where, yeah, the guys that are actually playing kind of good the last 2 weeks are the 2 cornerbacks that just got here, and everybody else that's been here or been at least around since April have been downright terrible, and they don't seem like they can do. Especially, look, in this availability, he was asked about. You started the game off with a 44 defense, essentially a Gator defense. Yeah, you know what happened with that Gator defense? He didn't call it again after 4 carries, where each carry was at least 6 yards. So, where are the results? Are we really talking about firing the wrong coach here? Your assessment on the whole thing from today, from these coaches and Anthony Weaver's, I guess, performance, Simon.
I don't really have an answer.
It's a loaded question. Essentially, I'm asking you, why are all of the guys that have been here for 2 years suck all of a sudden? Why do all these draft picks suck? Why do all these linebackers suck? Why do all of these safeties suck? And the only guys that are any good are the 2 cornerbacks they picked up a month ago. Your thoughts?
I mean, I don't have an answer to why they would be. I mean, if I knew that, I would be a billionaire or an NFL head coach. I don't understand. I think what Weaver is doing is extremely difficult, and I know there aren't that many people who agree with me, and that's absolutely fine. I think what he's trying to do is he understands that the players that he has don't fit what he's trying to do, and you can see how well he's coaching when you look at the fact that he is not a man cover scheme guy yet. What's happening is that he's almost having to play two different sets of coverages depending on which side of the field he's on. He's playing some zone to accommodate Russell Douglas. He's playing man to accommodate Jack Jones, and it's working for both of them. But unfortunately, you can only do so much. That's why he's blitzing way more than I think he's blitzed before. It's why he's dropping players off into coverage. And people are going, why is Jalen Phillips in coverage? Why is Chuck Robinson in coverage? It just happens. This is not something new. This is not something Anthony Weaver's just doing. It's happening all around the league, and it's been happening all around the league for ages. I've seen Micah Parsons in the last 2 seasons running 30, 40 yards down the field in coverage. We saw to our detriment in week 1, Leatu Latu dropping off in coverage. It's all about confusing quarterbacks post-snap. Everything changes post-snap. And if there are defensive coordinators who are not changing the picture for quarterbacks post-snap, then they're getting picked upon, they're getting beaten. It's what everybody does. It's what Vic Fangio does. It's what Brian Flores does. It's what all good coaches do. So I think people probably just need to watch a bit more football around the league if they're worried about why the Dolphins are dropping players off into coverage. As to why 2 corners are playing well and the rest aren't, I would say it's probably anomalous, quite frankly. It just is what it is. He's able to tender to their needs slightly more than you would do to an off-ball linebacker or to a defensive tackle. And the rest are just not playing very well because maybe they're just not very good players. I mean, it's very early to judge. Like Kenneth Grant has not been good at all, but it's 4 games. I think Weaver said that. I was just reading through the transcript there as you were asking me your extremely long question. He says that he's going to be fine, and he's right. It is only 4 games.
If you read that transcript, he also throws shade at Jordan Phillips.
Okay, I didn't get that far, but I mean, I think Phillips is outplaying Grant, frankly. Look, Kenneth Grant needs to work on his technique and his fundamentals, as we said. We mentioned it on Monday night. He pops up way too high. But missed tackles, which have been a thing, were a thing on Monday night. That's not on Anthony Weaver. That's on the players. Tyrell Dodson missing tackles, Jordan Brooks missing tackles. I mean, that is not on. They're veteran players. That is not the responsibility of Anthony Weaver. But overall, just the unit isn't very good. It's not got very good players, and the players that you expected. And we talked about it in the preseason. We said, look, if the front 4 can get pressure and they can get home with 4, and we can work drop 7, drop 8 coverages, then that might just protect the back end. And it hasn't been, because the front 4 have been awful at trying to get pressure on the quarterback. So, I've rambled for like 3 or 4 minutes, but I don't think I have an answer as to why it's happening. I think that maybe it's just the ability to cater to the needs more specifically of the players that are succeeding a little bit better than it is to the rest of them.
Yeah, and more Anthony Weaver on this, and I'd like to get Chris's ideas on this as well. He threw shade on Jordan Phillips. He says, look, there was this one play where I think it was when he reversed his field, when Justin Fields reversed his field, and he goes, if you watch that play, nobody blocks Jordan Phillips, so it would help if he tackled the quarterback. And I'm like, okay, now that's direct, that's pretty direct shade on your rookie zero tech. And then he also kind of revealed something when they asked him, oh, you're blitzing a lot because you're trying to get pressure on the quarterback. And he said, I'm blitzing a lot because I'm trying to stop the run. What does that tell you, Chris? What is he revealing with what's going on this defense? That he's essentially telling you, I'm blitzing to try to stop the run. And we know what that means. That means that he's firing somebody off to try to force cutbacks into where there's traffic, and even those guys are getting blocked. Your thoughts, Chris?
Well, I think as Simon alluded to, the defense is not very good. I think all the way through you have a lot of problems. And one thing I would push back a little bit on is, the idea that Rasul Douglas and Jack Jones are the ones that are playing well. I don't want to be prisoner of the moment. Jack Jones and Rasul Douglas played well in this last game. Rasul Douglas has been playing well for a couple weeks now. And Rasul Douglas also did not play well when he was thrown, and understandably so, but no matter, I mean, it is what it is. Understandably so or not, he didn't play well in the first week, certainly. It's the taking turns thing that kills a unit, right? It's the taking turns of who's bad this week. Jason Marshall was forced into that the starting nickel role. I think he has a natural fit there for the defensive needs, but also he's a rookie. He's never played that position before in his life, and he's a day 3 guy. How talented is he ultimately? And certainly not experienced. He played terribly at times. Cornell Armstrong has played terribly at times in his place. There's times that Tyrell Dodson has played well, and then there's times that Tyrell Dodson has played poorly, very poorly. There's times that Jordan Brooks has played well and poorly. I mean, it's the taking turns thing that I would emphasize more than just saying, "Oh no, actually the guys that we just acquired, they're the good ones right now." No, they were the good ones for a game. What's the next game look like? What does that look like when they're going against Tet McMillan? What does that look like when they're going against Xavier Leggett? What does that look like as you go week to week? That's what I would emphasize more, and that's just a very holistic bad approach to the defense that's gone on from a personnel roster management standpoint. You do have 2 rookie defensive linemen in a scheme that depends on these defensive linemen knowing what they're doing. And attacking the gap in the right way, reading things in the backfield the right way. You've brought up the idea of playing games and kind of blitzing the center so that the other guy can swing around and things like that. These are the sort of things that depend on communication, sometimes unspoken communication. And Calais Campbell could do it. Do you expect a rookie to do it? Not really. Do you expect a particularly young, one of the youngest rookies in the league, in Jordan Phillips to do it? Not really.
It would help if Kenneth Grant didn't blast Jordan Phillips on a play and allow an 8-yard.
Well, run. Right. I mean, but this is from top down. From top down, you have, I call it public accountability. It's finger pointing.
Anthony Weaver did it all over the place today. Even Jordan Brooks caught a stray when he said on that reverse field thing, he's supposed to be parallel to the ball and have backside. He's not supposed to go inside.
They're taking their cues. The public accountability is the message of the head coach. That is his shtick, his style. He is not afraid to publicly call out players. I think there are some players that do well with that when you're all in on the joke. Or it's not a joke, but you're all in on it, and then there are other players that don't do too well with it. I don't think Jalen Ramsey was too into it. So I think that's the style. You take your cues from the head coach. I think at first it didn't seem like Anthony Weaver was big into that, but they're the defense, they're now doing a lot of this attribution publicly. And that's I think that can be dangerous, particularly when you're losing. But this is a 1-3 team. We're seeing all the hallmarks of a bad team, of a 1-3 team. We're seeing all the finger pointing. This guy didn't do it right on that play. This guy didn't do it right on this play. I just cook. I don't buy the groceries. Our starting corners are. None of them were here at the start of training camp, so actually we as coaches should be congratulated for them playing as well as you've stated that they are. Injuries. What about this? What about the play calling here? What about the commitment to the run that wasn't there? What about it's just laundry list, right? Of all this finger pointing and all this, airing out your dirty laundry in public. And that's the hallmark of a bad team. And it's a bad defense right now. The hallmark of a bad defense is when a badly staffed defense is when everybody's taking turns doing it wrong. And they are. Everybody's taking turns doing it wrong.
Yeah, no, and it's on the all 22. It looks worse every time you just watch them. It looks worse than actually the performance, because for a second there, you're watching the broadcast, and you're watching. You're essentially scoreboard watching, and every once in a while you take a peek at a guard or a tackle, or you want to watch what one guy does on a certain play, and you look at the scoreboard and you're like, man, the Jets have 13 points, and there's 6 minutes left in the game. So obviously this defense has played well. Then you throw on the all 22, and it's discouraging to say the least. Let's do at least a couple of minutes before we go to break here on the Carolina Panthers offense. They're on their third guard. Stop me if you've heard this before. His name is Brady Christensen. Maybe that helps. They have a ton of injuries on the offensive line. Taylor Matone's going to be back, so he's going to be fine. Ty McMillan's a great player. Chuba Hubbard, he's not going to play. He has a calf injury. He hasn't practiced all week. He's not going to play. So it'll be Rico Dowdle, or put it. I don't even know I don't know how to say his last name.
He's the former Cowboys guy, Rico Dowdle.
Yeah, Rico Dowdle. Whatever. Xavier Leggett is off to a terrible start. He had a really good line the other day, and in availability, he says, "Look, trust me, I'm not the worst wide receiver in the NFL," which is self-deprecating. But he's fun to listen to in an interview. Is this, and let's do a minute on this before we go to break. Start with you, Simon. Is this what the doctor ordered? It's a wounded team, missing some of their best players. Chuba Hubbard, by the way, really good player. Missing some of the best players, and a quarterback who is, quite frankly, not been good. Is help on the way, Simon, on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're 1-3, same as us. The one win, they won 30-0, but they were embarrassed last week by the Patriots, and in many regards, they're in a similar boat to us in terms of quarterbacks. They're at pretty much a crossroads, and maybe a bit past that crossroads. They bet the house on Young being their franchise quarterback, but they can't. I don't think they can be confident in their search for answers. Don't forget, this is a team that traded 2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders, and DJ Moore to the Bears for the ability to pick him. And they'd obviously been kind of overly motivated to find a quarterback after,
and told Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, "You're not good."
Yeah, at the same time, but that kind of quarterback purgatory since Cam Newton had left, but the return on investment obviously hasn't materialized. But other teams have kind of pushed back on the Panthers process, I think, and they paid an extremely high price of moving up for a player who, was undersized. And there's been a lot of pressure to make that pick work beyond the obvious of him being the number 1 pick. CJ Stroud certainly was in the same draft, certainly delivered in that rookie year. The Panthers fired Frank Reich in his rookie season. Scott Fitterer, the GM, was fired after the season. One of the picks they traded the following year turned out to be Caleb Williams, but it could have been Jaden Daniels, Drake May. They're among the first 6 quarterbacks that were available. So it's kind of understandable why the Panthers are now at this kind of point that they're at, sort of feeling of desperation, trying to make it work. It's why they've invested in the offensive line. Obviously, they took one of our better offensive linemen in Rob
Hunt.
Yeah, Rob Hunt. Thank you. And used back-to-back first-round picks on wide receivers, and to that end, Ted McMillan has been excellent so far this season. But it's also why they hired Dave Canales. You go back into his history and the work that he did with Baker, the work that he did with Geno Smith. So I think that Young will probably get a runway to try and turn it around. But the start of the season has been slow, and he played pretty well down the stretch last year. Won 4 of 10, but the completion percentage was decent. The touchdowns were decent, but it's actually it's just about 60% completion percentage. 5 touchdowns, 3 picks, couple of fumbles. He's 30th in EPA, ahead of Jake Browning and Cam Ward. So it's a lot on his shoulders, and I think if Chuba Hubbard can't go, and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to. I think that's an absolute boon for a Dolphins team who are probably going to take a little bit of smoke from Monday night, and the performance there generally was better, and they won, and hopefully they can inflict another defeat and inexplicably sort of move to 2-3 as we go forwards. But offensively for the Panthers, it starts and finishes with Bryce Young, who ironically probably had his best game as a pro against us in Miami a couple of seasons ago. So, which Bryce Young will we get on Sunday?
Chris?
The one thing that I would caution about the Carolina Panthers, and this is heading into last week, because I did expect a win against the Jets. I thought about this coming week against the Panthers, and if the Dolphins do finally get on with get a win in the win column, would they be so relieved and after having been straining so hard to try and get that win, would they kind of be under the false impression that they fixed it, that they fixed their problems, that and then that could set up for a true, they were talking about the Jets as if that was a trap game, and both teams were 0-3. And the Dolphins were the one for the first 3 games this season. The Dolphins were probably the worst team in the league. There's no team out there that is a trap opponent for the Dolphins. There's no team out there that they have to be careful not to underestimate. Okay, that is not a thing when you are 0-3, and it's not a thing when you're 1-3 either. So I think that I do have a little bit of issue with the idea that they could head up to Carolina thinking, okay, we got our first win, we got it fixed. We're just going to stack those wins now. They're looking ahead at the schedule. Everybody's doing it. They're looking, that's probably a win. That's probably a win. That's why I'm mapping out a way for them to get back into 500, stuff like that. I think they could get ahead of themselves in this game. And this is the game to do it, because the one home game that the Carolina Panthers have played this year was that 30-0 win against the Falcons. That's the one home game they've played. They've lost all 3 of the other ones on the road. Okay. Well, where are we playing this game? We're playing this in their house. So, if home away has anything to do with it, then this could be a better Panthers team than we think. But the monkey wrench in all that is the loss of Tyreek Hill. What does that do to the locker room's mentality? The Ewing effect. You're familiar with it, right? Right. So if anything is going to keep the team humble and working, it's the loss of a superstar like him that makes them say, okay, we really all better be on top of it, because we have to take up the slack from losing Tyreek Hill. And so I would have headed into this game thinking that this is a trap game for the Dolphins and they could easily lose this one. But I think, oddly and ironically, the loss of Tyreek Hill may have prevented that. It may have prevented the sort of lackadaisical mentality that could have contributed to that. So I do think that the Dolphins are going to have, listen, the Carolina Panthers are a 3 wide receiver team, and the Dolphins defense has been terrible at 3 wide receiver. The only issue there is that the Carolina Panthers are a terrible 3 wide receiver team. They have not produced, in the passing game that way. And so you ask, is this just what the doctor ordered? In some ways, yes. In some ways, absolutely. This is what the doctor ordered. This is a tailor-made team for the Dolphins to just go ahead and beat, even with the issues that they've had this year. It's a matter of whether they were going to come in with the correct mentality and work to do it. And before the loss of Tyreek Hill, I would have questioned that. But now, after the loss of Tyreek Hill, I don't.
All right. Moving on to when the Dolphins have the football. I think we know the way forward. Now, they signed Cedric Wilson. He will not play this week. He will practice next week. I like how they came out and they said he had a minor procedure, but he's gonna be ready next week. Next week.
Nothing is not consistent.
Yeah, he's gonna be ready next week. So
they're the most consistent team in the.
Yeah, so they have a couple of moves that they have to make. I guess Taj Washington, it's his show at the back end. So I think the way forward they kind of showed you. It's a lot. It's kind of back to the future. It's what they were good at in 22 and 23, minus Tyreek Hill. Uh, Tua can play efficient in that regard as long as they run the football. I guess they're back to that. But I look at the Carolina Panthers, and one thing just sticks out like a sore thumb. They're really good up the middle at defensive tackle, but they're bad at linebacker. So this is going to be about, and I'll start with you, Simon. This is going to be about stretching them horizontally and stressing those linebackers, right? And trying to at least render those defensive tackles, if not useless, ineffective for the game.
Yeah, I mean, it
Would
all
agree.
stacks up. I mean, Derek Brown is having an outstanding season already, 4 games in, and that's the strength of the defense. You talk about some of the young guys. It's clear that Nick Scotton's going to be a really good player, but it's
And Wharton's a really good player, but he's on the injury report. He might not play, so that's another feather in the Dolphins' cap, possibly.
Yeah, and obviously, in the secondary, JC Horn, when healthy, is as good as there is in the league. Not called Patrick Surtain. They've got Trayvon Moring on the back end as well. So, like you say, it's those perimeter zone runs and really stressing those guys that are playing at linebacker, the outside guys, whether that's Roseboom or Trevin Wallace or DJ Wanham. And I think that's the important thing. We talked about the blueprint on Monday night, and that's run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. And if the Dolphins aren't doing that, Chris, then we've got a serious problem, because I think moving forwards without Tyreek Hill, that's how they're going to win games.
I wonder, because if there's one thing that Nick Scotton can do, it is stop the run, and it is stop the run on the outside. I mean, he's a powerful. I think he's a powerful big guy, and so I kind of wonder if actually running between, despite Derek Brown, running between the tackles could actually be a big key here, and which means not Devon Achane. It makes me wonder if this is the game where they actually do need to get Ollie Gordon going in order to actually beat this team up. I don't want to falsely, everybody will say that every game, but I do think that this could be the game where it's actually the most important. Looking at the linebackers and looking at the edges, I get what you're saying, like get it to the outside, Alf, but I think that they might have some ability to prevent that, especially the way that defenses have been doing that against Miami for a couple of years now. The real wild card for me is, to me, the Jets didn't play. There is starting to be a recipe for success against Miami's offense, right? We've talked ad nauseum about it over the last couple of years, right? The Jets didn't play that, to me. Like that wasn't their game plan. So I kind of wonder, okay, what happens? I think the Panthers will, though, and so I think the question becomes, can we overcome that? Can we overcome that? What's the new formula that actually allows that to happen? And I can't help but think that has something to do with Ollie Gordon pounding the ball in between the tackles. That's just my feeling.
Yeah, Jiro Evero, old school cover 6 guy from the Vic Fangio tree. So you got to figure there's going to be a lot of zone. He's not going to do what Aaron Glenn tried to do last week, which is trying to match up in man on third down and playing right into
it was almost
what Miami does well.
nonsensical.
Yeah,
it was almost nonsensical. I get that it's their identity as a team, and you you don't want to fight that, but Miami's identity as an offense is to do well against that and do poorly against that. So you would think that you'd be like, well, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to do that instead. And I think that this is a case where Carolina is going to employ the formula that has worked against Miami's offense, particularly on the road, when they're on the road. And we'll see if they overcome it. And it's not a great team, so maybe they will.
All right, it's time to pick it. I'll go first. Some PFF numbers suggest that Carolina is the second worst team defending outside zone, while Miami is the second best team running outside zone. Miami is second as a third down offense, and one of the worst third down defenses in all of football. So it's going to behoove them to win on first down, run the ball on first down, stick to all those run actions, and just win. Like I said last week, I didn't think that they were ready to blow out the Jets, and they had an opportunity, but you could tell that they were like, you know what, let's just win this game, instead of pressing any of the action here. So they played for that field goal late. I don't think that they're ready to blow out anybody right now. The defense is an extreme work in progress. So be prepared to be bored. But I think that they keep their 3-touchdown streak going. They score 27, and Bryce Young scores 21, and they get an identical score to the Jets game this past week. Dolphins 27, Panthers 21. What say you, Simon?
24-19 Dolphins.
Chris?
I do not think the Dolphins score in that realm. I think that this ends up something like a 17-10 ball game with the Dolphins coming out ahead. I don't think the offense is going to do particularly well. That's the part that I would doubt. I think that we're reached a point in the season where actually the defense is going to start to firm up a little bit against some of these opponents, particularly the Carolina Panthers. As I said, Miami is bad against 3 wide receiver. What does the doctor order for that? Go against a team that can't really pass very well out of 3 wide receiver and whose major running back is not going to play. So I think that the Carolina Panthers offense is going to have a very poor performance against Miami in this game. But I also don't see the Dolphins offense keeping up any kind of momentum against Evero's defense.
All right. And we said that we were going to pick this game, so we will do it. And the game wasn't ruined, people. Okay. Just because both teams are not undefeated. FSU Miami, that's on Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be a ton of fun. Everybody who thinks that, FSU lost to Virginia, so therefore Miami's just going to roll into Tallahassee and just blow them out. Now, this is a road game. It's a rivalry. FSU is plenty talented. They have a good offensive line. This game is going to be tight. And I got Miami by a field goal, 26-23. Simon, your thoughts on this game Saturday night?
I think if Florida State can get pressure on Carson Beck, I think that will make it difficult. But I think, you've got to look at the best player in college football so far this year, I think, in terms of pound for pound ability. And I think that's been Ruben Bain. And unless the Noles have a plan to shut him down, I think that probably that pressure will get to Tommy Castellanos. If he can escape pressure, get out of the pocket, then that's a different matter altogether. But I suspect the Hurricanes will win. But the atmosphere will be wild. Road game, Tallahassee will always be, a difficult place to go and play. But I think the Canes will probably just do it.
All right, Chris.
Yeah, I think that the Hurricanes team that I've seen on a couple of occasions, especially I saw them against South Florida, obviously, but I saw them in a couple of other games. That Hurricanes team that I saw is the best team in college football, in my opinion. So I think that rivalry game is against Florida State. So I think you're right to say that, but also I think that they come out pretty decently ahead here.
Fair.
All right. And we'll leave it there. By the way, first odds came out for the first overall pick in April. And did you guys see who's number 1, the favorite right now?
I did.
Well, then you guys, I guess you could break the news to Simon and I know who it is, but say it.
Yeah, it's Dante Moore. Dante Moore is the odds favorite for number 1 pick.
What's interesting is that I saw Dane Brugler on Tuesday of this week say that according to Moore's, the people around Moore, they are in absolutely no rush to go to the NFL. I would be very surprised if Dante Moore goes to the NFL. I think the intriguing name for me in terms of quarterbacks, I mean, Mendoza has kind of been around the top 10 even in the offseason. Sellers, I don't think Sellers will come out. Mendoza can potentially go back. The interesting name for me is Ty Simpson of Alabama. I think he's playing really, really well, and I thought his performance against Georgia the other night was outstanding. But he's only started 4 games. The flip side to that is he's already 23 because he's obviously sat on the bench for for 3 years behind the guys that he sat behind, Jalen Milroe, etc., etc. So I think Ty Simpson's playing well. I think there'll be quite a big. I mean, I think there'll be quite a big change. We're seeing a lot of names that are being kind of peddled around. When it comes to the offensive linemen, I saw a mock today. It's Caden Proctor at 9 and Isaiah World early, and it's just like those things don't really. I'm not sure those things are matching up with what's being played out. That the Utah tackles, I thought generally I like them, but I thought they looked really poor against Bailey, and they played Texas Tech a couple of weeks ago, and they didn't play well at all. And yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, Dante Moore is obviously the hot name, but I do not see him coming out. Well, just why would you? That Nike money will, you'll earn as much pretty much next year as you would do if you came, went to the NFL. Why bother having the pressure when you've still got extra eligibility to play for arguably what will be the defending national champions, or a team that will go to the national championship? Because it looks like, you pick one of 3: Oregon, Miami, Ohio State at this stage look like they're kind of the powers of college football.
I actually do wonder, Simon, about, we've talked about Mateer as well at Oklahoma. Does he come out? Does he not come out? I tend to think that guys will give their new team 2 years.
Yeah.
When they go do that, but at the same time, all that could be dependent on how things go. If Oklahoma manages to hold serve while he's out, which I understand is going to be a tough task, because for example, I don't know if he's going to be able to play against Texas. Like what is his outlook looking like how long he's going to be out.
They said a month. They said a month. Yeah. They said a month a week ago.
So, looks like he might be back next weekend.
Really? So if he is able to play against Texas, if he is able to play against Ole Miss, if he does, in other words, what I'm saying is, with the schedule that they have, if he's able to come back in time to blaze through it, he doesn't have a reason to come back anymore. Like, he will have accomplished too much at Oklahoma and will be on the other side of things, where he'll be like, I'm just going to come out.
One thing on John Mateer that I think is I glossed over it, but now going back into my memory bank, remember, he was Miami's first choice. Carson Beck was actually their second choice. They talked about a 2-year NIL commitment, and as soon as they were pushing that in the media, that it was going to be record numbers, 2-year NIL commitment, John Mateer all of a sudden committed to Oklahoma.
Yeah. The one thing I would say about that is, though, don't forget who the general manager is at Oklahoma. Jim Nagy now has been heading up the Senior Bowl for many, many years. An awful lot of NFL connections, an awful lot of NFL experience. And Nagy, straight talker, he will tell Mateer, and he will be able to give Mateer all the feedback, all the information that he needs. And he's another one that I don't think needs to, necessarily has to. The flip side, obviously, is, you're going to look around and see Carson Beck 2 years ago look like the default number 1 pick, and then had a really difficult year with Georgia. Same this year with Drew Aller. People were talking about, if Aller, scouts were saying if Aller come out, he was going to go in the top 10. He's had a very disappointing start to the year. I mean, 3 of the 4 games he's played in, he's not been very good at all. I didn't think he was very good the other night. I think people will always fall for the 6'5", 230-pound guy with a big arm, but I would be strictly buyer beware when it came to Drew Aller. So there is that for guys like Mateer and Moore. If Dante Moore wins the Heisman, for example, does he have a lot more to prove? But then, there's nothing wrong with, you're in no rush to go to the NFL, is what I'd say.
Well, what I would say about the 2 of them is, all things being equal, if Dante Moore has the run, makes the run through the playoffs and such, or if John Mateer makes the run through the playoffs, if they were, hypothetically, if Mateer did it, I think Mateer comes out. Hypothetically, if Dante Moore makes the run, I don't think that necessarily means he comes out. Like, yeah. I think he is, as you say, they're not in a hurry, and he is young enough, and he's going to look to. So I think that the elite level success would mean that Mateer probably does come out after all. I wouldn't say the same about Dante Moore. But I think that we're going to be talking about probably the guys that we've been talking about that we don't get that excited about, which is like Garrett Nussmeier and Drew Aller, Drew Aller needs to be in a spread offense. I think, but no, I think that this is going to be the same old kind of names. It's not going to be Lenora Sellers. It's not going to be. It probably won't be Mendoza. I think that he's another one of those that could sneaky stay back in school. So the more we go on, the more I wonder if it's going to be kind of a not a boring list, because I think there are exciting players in there, like Taylon Green, and I keep talking about Jalen Daniels, but it's going to be at the top. Does anybody really get excited about Newsmeyer at number 1?
No.
I don't. So
yeah, Ruben Bain, by the way, 14-1. That's kind of interesting to me. All right. We're going to call it right here. On Monday when we talk to you, we will know results of both games. And maybe we'll talk about both games. And maybe we'll have a 2-3 professional football team headed back home, ready to face a Chargers team coming out east, who's had no success coming out east for the first big game of the season, I guess. But till then.
See you, boys.
see you
later.